There are 15 Japanese home rules that Americans break every single day, and together they are the reason your house has a smell you cannot detect anymore, but every guest picks up the moment they walk through your front door. I have spent a long time walking into other people's homes and hotel rooms with a clipboard, and I can tell you the smell is real, and it is not the one you think it is. It greets you at the door, a warm, close, lived-in smell, faint but always there, and the person who lives inside it is the only one on earth who can no longer sense it. Most people are breaking at least 4 of these rules right now without knowing the rules even exist. And the very last one on this list, number 1, is about the single object your face is pressed into for 8 hours every night, the one thing in your house that has never been aired, moved, or truly cleaned in all the years you have owned it. Keep that object in the back of your mind because I am building you toward it, and it is the worst offender of them all. Here is the thing nobody told you. For about 100 years now, you have been sold a story that a clean house is a house that smells like vanilla, or linen, or a pine forest. That is not clean. That is a smell laid on top of another smell. Japan built its whole idea of a home around the opposite principle, which is that you remove the source of a smell instead of covering it. And my grandmother in Japan taught me the same thing before I ever cleaned a room for money. We did not lose these habits because they failed. We lost them because someone built a 50-foot aisle of bottles and taught us that spending money was the same thing as being clean. It never was. My name is Kenji Sato, and for 25 years I cleaned professionally, from restaurant kitchens at midnight to hotel suites that had to pass a white glove inspection before a single guest walked in. I am not here to sell you one bottle of anything, because the whole point of this channel is that you already own what you need. Now, before we go any further, I have to be honest with you. Only a very small percentage of the people who watch this channel are actually subscribed. If you love the idea of a home that smells clean on its own, with no candle and no plug-in doing the lying for you, even half as much as I do, then do consider subscribing. It is completely free, and you can always change your mind later. It genuinely helps a working man keep making these. Right then, let us count them down, from 15 to 1. Number 15. Number 15 is your washing machine, and it is the reason your favorite towel smells like a wet dog 10 seconds into every shower. In a Japanese home, the laundry comes out the moment the cycle ends, the lid stays open between washes so the drum can dry, and fabric softener barely exists in the aisle at all. In your house, the load sits wet for 2 days, you pour in a generous cap of softener every time, and you blame the towels. That softener never rinsed away the way you assumed. It has been collecting behind the drum, inside the rubber seal, and around the little tray, and it turned into food for mold that your closed lid then trapped the moisture around. Those black specks you peel off a dark shirt are not lint. They are mold flaking off the back of a drum you have never once looked behind. So pull the laundry out within 10 minutes, leave the lid open, and once a month run a hot empty cycle with a cup of white vinegar. Whatever you do, do not add another drop of fabric softener until you have done that, because the softener is what started it. Number 14 is the kitchen sponge, and it is the single dirtiest object in most American homes. You use it to wipe down, then you leave it in the sink wet, folded, sitting in its own little puddle, and overnight it grows the exact smell you then spread across every clean dish the next morning. In a Japanese kitchen, the cloth gets wrung out hard and hung to dry flat, and it is boiled or swapped often. A wet sponge is a smell factory, and you are handling it 3 times a day. So wring it out until it is nearly dry, stand it up where air can reach it, and once a week drop it in boiling water for 2 minutes or just throw the old one out. A sponge costs less than $1. The smell it saves you is worth far more than that. Number 13 is the drains, and this is the smell that rises up to meet you, and you can never find the source. Every sink, every shower, every floor drain has a little water trap in it, meant to block the smell from below, and when that trap dries out, or clogs with hair and grease and soap, the smell comes straight up into the room. In a Japanese home, the drain strainers get emptied and scrubbed as a daily thing, not a project. I have crawled under more sinks than I can count, chasing a smell a family swore was coming from the walls, and 9 times out of 10 it was a dry trap or a strainer packed solid with a season of hair and grease. So this week, lift out the strainer in your kitchen sink and your shower, clear the hair in the gray sludge, and once a week pour a kettle of very hot water down each drain to melt the grease clinging inside the pipe. If a drain you rarely use starts to smell, run the water in it for 10 seconds to refill the trap that dried out. That rising smell you could never place goes with it. Number 12 is the trash, and I do not mean whether you take it out. I mean the wet garbage. In an American kitchen, the food scraps go in the bin damp and they sit there fermenting between collection days while you spray the air above them. In a Japanese kitchen, the wet scraps are wrung out over the sink strainer, wrapped and often frozen until collection day so they never rot in the room at all. The wet is the whole problem. So wring your food scraps dry before they hit the bin, keep a lid on it, and wipe the inside of the can itself once a week, because the smell soaks into the plastic and the bin becomes the source long after the trash is gone. Number 11 is the clothes on your body the moment you walk in the door. You take your shoes off, good, but then you sit on the edge of your bed in the same pants that spent all day on an office chair, a bus seat, and a restaurant bench. And a Japanese home outdoor clothes never touch a bed, a couch, or an upholstered chair, and people change into a dedicated set of house clothes within a minute of getting home. Your clothes are a delivery system for every surface you sat on today, and you just pressed all of it into the comforter your face will lie on for the next 8 hours. So keep a set of house clothes on a hook by the door and change the second you get in, before you sit down anywhere. It takes about 40 seconds. Number 10 is your shoes and the cabinet you keep them in. Damp shoes are one of the strongest smells in any home, and Americans stack them in a closed closet with no air, where the smell concentrates and then leaks out every time the door opens. In a Japanese entryway, shoes come off, and the shoe cabinet, the getabako, is aired, and people never put a damp shoe away sealed, so do not put wet shoes straight into a closed cupboard. Let them dry in the open first, drop a small bag of charcoal in the cabinet to pull the smell out of the air, and leave the door open an hour a week to let it breathe. Charcoal costs a few dollars and it removes the smell instead of masking it. Number 9 is what you leave sitting on your wet counters: a shampoo bottle in the tub, a bar of soap on the ledge, a sponge by the sink, all in the same spot for months. Anywhere an object rests on a damp surface, a slime starts growing underneath it, made of soap residue, water minerals, and dead skin. And after 8 weeks, the bottom of that shampoo bottle is a gray ring you can scrape off with a fingernail. A surface you cannot lift a thing off is a surface you cannot clean. So hang your bottles off a rail, mount the soap on the wall, and give the water nowhere to sit trapped. Every object you lift off a wet surface is one fewer place the smell can hide. Number 8 is when you clean your floors, and this one feels backward at first. Dust does not live on your floor during the day. It lives in the air because every footstep kicks it back up into suspension where it hangs for hours. Only overnight, with nobody moving, does it finally settle, so the one moment it is truly catchable is the first hour after you wake. In a Japanese home, the floor gets wiped with a dry cloth first, then vacuumed, and both are done early before anyone has walked through. Run a vacuum across a busy floor in the afternoon, and the exhaust just throws the settled dust back into the air you breathe all night. So wipe first with a dry floor cloth, vacuum second, and do both within an hour of waking. Do that 3 days a week, and the layer on your baseboards thins visibly. Number 7 is a principle the Japanese call the while you are at it habit, where a small job is folded into something you were already doing. The stovetop gets wiped while the kettle boils. Heat and moisture make grease let go, so a warm stovetop takes a paper towel in 30 seconds, and the same stovetop 3 days later takes a chemical in 40 minutes and still smells of old oil every time you turn on the heat. This is not a discipline problem. It is a physics problem you turned into a discipline problem by waiting, so keep one cloth by the stove and wipe it while the water heats. Whatever you do not let cooking grease sit and cook onto a warm surface again and again, because that burnt smell is coming from the film you never wiped. Number 6 is your refrigerator, and the smell that hits you every time you open the door. Americans try to fix it with an open box of baking soda in the corner and call it done, while a spill dries into the bottom shelf and a forgotten container turns in the back. In a Japanese kitchen, the fridge gets wiped down as a routine, and a piece of charcoal does the deodorizing, because charcoal actually pulls smell out of the air instead of just sitting there. So wipe the shelves and the seal every couple of weeks with a little vinegar water. Throw out what is turned and swap the baking soda for a small bag of charcoal. The cold does not stop a smell, it just slows it down while it spreads to everything else in there. Number 5 is the toilet, and here is where waiting costs you the most. Americans clean the toilet only when the bowl looks discolored, and by then every flush for 2 weeks has already thrown a fine mist across a 6-foot radius. That mist lands on the seat, the base, the floor, the wall behind it, and the towel hanging 2 feet away. That is the smell you notice in the hallway and can never locate, because the source is not the bowl, it is the wall behind it and the towel beside it. In a Japanese bathroom, a single wipe goes over the seat, the rim, the base, and the floor around it every day, a 10-second job folded into the morning, so keep a tub of wipes in the tank and do the whole thing in 10 seconds a day. The smell you can never find disappears within a week. Number 4 is the machine blowing air into your face right now, your heating and cooling system. That filter is not just catching dust. It is catching skin, pet dander, cooking grease, and the mold spores from every wet spot in this whole video, and once it loads up, it becomes the food that lets mold grow in the dark, damp coil inside the unit. Then every breath in the house comes through it. Americans change the filter every 3 months if they remember at all, and meanwhile they buy an air purifier for the bedroom while never cleaning the one machine whose entire job is moving all the air in the house. Pause this and go find your filter right now, behind a grill in the ceiling or in a hallway wall. So change it every month, not every 3. Run the fan for 30 minutes after cooling in humid months to dry the inside, and get the coil cleaned once a year. It costs about the same as 3 months of candles you will no longer need. Number 3 is ventilation, and it is the rule that fixes the smell your guests notice at the door. The reason you cannot smell your own house is that your nose stops reporting any steady smell within minutes of exposure, because it only flags change, not constants. You went nose blind to your own home in about the 3rd week you lived there, but the sources never stopped. The bodies, the damp towels, the drains, the cooking oil that settles on every surface within 15 feet of the stove. And here is the trap, because your nose only reports change. The candle you laid on top also goes nose blind, so you buy a bigger one. The Environmental Protection Agency will tell you plainly that the air inside a sealed home is often several times more polluted than the air outside. In a Japanese home, 2 windows on opposite ends of the house get open for 15 minutes, twice a day, even in winter, because the only way to reset saturated air is to push it out and pull new air in. So open 2 windows on opposite sides for 15 minutes tonight before bed. The heat loss is smaller than you fear, and you will notice the difference in the first 10 seconds you walk in tomorrow. Number 2 is the state you leave your kitchen in overnight. Americans go to bed with a plate in the sink, a pan soaking, and crumbs on the counter, telling themselves they will deal with it tomorrow. The water left in the sink is the primary source of the drain smell. The scraps in the strainer ferment for 8 hours, and the wet sponge sits in the wet basin growing the very thing you will wash tomorrow's dishes with. In a Japanese home, the last act of the night is emptying the sink completely, wiping the basin dry, and pouring a kettle of hot water down the drain to break the day's grease. So give it 10 minutes after dinner, no exceptions. Sink empty, basin dry, counter clear, hot water down the drain. You wake into a kitchen that has not already started losing, and now the one I promised you at the very start. Number one is your bed, and it is the biggest offender in the house. In a Japanese home, the futon is aired every single day, folded away in the morning and hung in the sun when the weather allows, so both moisture and mites are dealt with before they can build. Your mattress sits on a solid frame with no air moving underneath it, has not been shifted since the day it was delivered, and has been absorbing about a glass of your moisture every night, through breath and sweat, for years. 8 years of one glass a night comes to roughly 730 gallons. That is a bathtub and a half of your own moisture still inside the object your face is pressed against for a third of your life. I inspected hotel rooms for years, and I will tell you a story I have never forgotten. We had a suite that kept failing the white glove, and it was not dust. The room was spotless, but there was a smell in it that no amount of scrubbing would lift. We shampooed the carpet twice. We washed every curtain. Nothing. In the end, it was the mattress, 3 years old, sitting on a solid platform with no air beneath it, holding every night of every guest who had ever slept in it. We pulled it, aired the replacement on a schedule from then on, and the smell never came back. The finest hotels in the world rotate and air and replace their mattresses on a strict calendar for exactly this reason, because they know a mattress is not furniture, it is a sponge. Moisture in a mattress is the exact home dust mites need, and their waste is one of the most common indoor allergens on record, which is why the American Lung Association points people to the bedroom first when a stuffy nose will not quit. So once a week, strip the bed and stand the mattress on its side against the wall for a few hours with the windows open. Wash the pillows every 3 months, and if you are on a solid base, switch to a slatted frame so it can breathe. If you take one thing from this whole video, take this. Your mattress needs to see sunlight and air, and yours has seen neither in years. That is the smell you have been covering. That is the 730 gallons. That is number one. None of these 15 habits is really cleaning, and that is the whole point. Japan did not find a better way to scrub. They found a way to stop needing to. You're not knowing this is not on you. You were sold a candle in January because it was cheaper than opening a window, and a fabric softener because it smelled like the idea of clean, and nobody ever went back to check what those choices were doing over 10 years. When you strip it all down, a home that smells clean on its own is not really about smell at all. It is about being a person whose home is genuinely well, top to bottom, a place that takes care of the people in it because you took care of it first. That is not a small thing. That is the difference between a house you cover up and a home you can stand in the middle of and breathe. So do me a favor and tell me two things down in the comments. Tell me which one of these 15 you are going to fix tonight, and tell me the smell in your own home you have never been able to find the source of, because I read as many as I can and the patterns never stop teaching me. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Do it once, do it properly, and then it stays done. And subscribe before you go, because next time I am going to show you the one spot in your bathroom that holds more of the smell than the toilet does. A spot you wipe past every single day and have never once actually cleaned, and when you see what comes off it, you will not sleep until it is done.